Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're continuing the story as the search for Hana becomes even more intense. After seeing her twice and losing her both times, one shocking clue changes everything. What if Hana has been living nearby this entire time? If you enjoy emotional and mysterious stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next part of the journey. The next morning arrived quietly, wrapped in the pale light of early dawn and the soft sounds of the countryside waking up. A thin layer of mist still lingered above the narrow roads, drifting slowly between fences, trees, and small houses hidden behind gardens. The village looked calm, almost untouched, but the young person barely noticed any of it. Their mind had remained restless through the entire night. Even after returning home, even after the silence settled around them, the image of Hana walking past the bus window had refused to leave. Every time they closed their eyes, they saw the same moment replaying again. The blurred figure, the familiar posture, the instant recognition, and then the emptiness that followed. They sat quietly on the edge of the bed for a few seconds before finally standing up. The room was still unfinished, carrying traces of dust and construction from the work done the previous day. Wooden boards leaned against the wall. Tools remained scattered near the doorway. The house was slowly taking shape, but right now, none of it held their attention. Their thoughts were somewhere else entirely. Hana. The name no longer felt distant now. It had become real again, attached to a place, a direction, a possibility that refused to disappear. Yesterday had changed something. For the first time in a long while, they no longer felt like they were chasing a memory. Hana wasn't trapped in the past anymore. Hana was here, somewhere within this quiet village, moving through the same roads, breathing the same morning air. That realization alone made it impossible to stay still. They stepped outside into the cool morning breeze, pausing briefly as the sound of birds echoed faintly through the trees. The village was beginning its usual rhythm. Distant voices, the sound of metal gates opening, someone sweeping leaves near the road. Ordinary life moving forward like every other day. Yet to them, everything felt charged with meaning now, as if every small detail might lead somewhere important. Their eyes moved instinctively toward the road from yesterday. The same direction, the same area, the same unanswered question. Without wasting time, they started walking. At first, their pace was calm, controlled, but underneath that calmness was a quiet urgency they couldn't suppress. Their eyes observed everything more carefully now, every path branching away from the main road, every person passing by, every movement in the distance. They weren't searching blindly anymore. They were tracing patterns. The memory from yesterday replayed itself constantly in their mind, but now they focused on the details surrounding it rather than the emotion itself. Hana had appeared near the same area twice. That couldn't be meaningless. There had to be a reason Hana passed through there so often. Maybe work, maybe home, maybe both. As they continued deeper into the village, the atmosphere slowly changed. The roads became slightly wider, signs of activity appearing more clearly now. A few people were carrying baskets filled with vegetables. Someone pushed a bicycle loaded with goods toward the market area. The smell of cooked food drifted faintly through the morning air. And then they noticed something else. Loofah. Several baskets near a roadside stall were filled with freshly harvested loofah, stacked neatly beside other vegetables. The sight immediately pulled their attention back to the memory of Hana. Yesterday, the figure had appeared near this same direction, near this same kind of activity. They slowed down. A thought quietly formed in their mind. Could Hana be connected to the market? It sounded simple, almost obvious once the idea surfaced, but somehow it made everything feel more real. Markets created routines. People returned to them every day. If Hana worked nearby, sold vegetables, or passed through this area regularly, then the repeated encounters finally made sense. For the first time, the search no longer felt impossible. They continued walking toward the market area, their heartbeats subtly increasing with every step. The closer they got, the more alive the surroundings became. Vendors arranged goods beneath faded umbrellas. Motorbikes moved slowly through narrow spaces. Voices overlapped in the distance, blending into the familiar noise of rural trade. Yet despite all the movement, their focus remained fixed on one thing: Hana. Their eyes moved constantly through the crowd, searching faces, silhouettes, clothing, posture, anything familiar. Every time someone wearing a headscarf passed by, their attention snapped toward them instantly. Every brief resemblance triggered a sudden rush of hope, followed almost immediately by disappointment when the face turned out to belong to someone else. Still, they didn't stop, because even disappointment felt different now. Yesterday, they had felt helpless. Today, they felt close. That feeling alone kept them moving. They passed through one section of the market, then another, trying not to appear too obvious while still searching carefully. Occasionally, they slowed near vegetable stalls, pretending to examine the produce while secretly scanning the surrounding area. Nothing, no sign of Hana. But then, just as frustration began creeping back into their chest, they overheard part of a conversation nearby. "The loofah sold out early again today." The words immediately caught their attention. They turned slightly toward the sound, without drawing too much attention to themselves. Two women stood beside a stall, discussing the morning sales, casually sorting vegetables while talking. That young woman came very early today, already left not long ago. Their heartbeat tightened. A young woman. Loofah. Early morning. Something about it aligned too perfectly to ignore. They stepped a little closer, trying to listen without interrupting. One of the women laughed softly while adjusting a basket. "She always comes before the crowd gets busy." The other nodded. "And leaves quickly too." The young person felt a sudden tension rise inside their chest. Their mind immediately connected the pieces together, almost instinctively. Hana. It had to be. But once again, they were too late. The realization hit with a familiar sting. Not as painful as yesterday, but sharper in a different way. Hana had been here, very recently, close enough that the traces of her presence still lingered in the conversations around them. And yet, they had still missed her. They lowered their gaze briefly, exhaling slowly as frustration and determination collided inside them. It was happening again, always one step behind, always arriving just after she disappeared. But unlike before, this time something important had changed. Now they knew Hana truly belonged to this place, not as a passing figure, not as a memory, but as part of the village itself. That understanding settled deeply inside them. Their eyes lifted again, slowly scanning the market around them. The sounds, the movement, the crowded pathways, it all felt different now, as though Hana's invisible presence existed somewhere within it all. And then another thought emerged. If Hana came here regularly, then Hana would come back. Not someday, soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe even later today. For the first time since returning to the village, hope stopped feeling fragile. It began to feel possible. The market slowly grew louder as the morning continued. But for the young person, every sound now seemed distant compared to the thoughts racing inside their mind. The conversation they had overheard kept repeating itself over and over. A young woman, Lufa, arriving early, leaving quickly. None of those details alone meant anything, but together they formed something impossible to ignore. The feeling in their chest deepened, not just hope anymore, but certainty. Hana had been here, maybe only minutes before they arrived, close enough that traces of her presence still lingered in the routines of the market and in the casual words of strangers who had no idea how important those details were. They stood near the vegetable stalls a little longer, pretending to look through the baskets while quietly observing the people around them. Every movement now felt significant. Every passing figure caught their attention for a second too long. Women carrying baskets walked through the narrow paths between stalls. Vendors called out prices to customers. The scent of fresh vegetables mixed with dust and sunlight drifting through the crowded space. Life moved naturally around them, but inside, nothing felt calm anymore. For the first time, Hana no longer felt like a memory hidden somewhere in the past. She felt real again, connected to this village, connected to this market, connected to these ordinary routines happening right in front of them. That realization changed the entire search. Yesterday, they had only been reacting to a fleeting glimpse. Today, they were beginning to understand Hana's world. Their eyes drifted toward a small, empty space near the edge of the market where a few baskets still remained on the ground. One of them contained only a few damaged loofah left behind, as if the rest had already sold earlier that morning. They stared at it quietly, their thoughts slowly piecing things together. They could almost imagine Hana standing there before sunrise, arranging vegetables, speaking briefly with customers, then disappearing before the market became crowded. The image formed naturally in their mind, vivid enough to feel real. Without realizing it, they stepped closer. One of the older women nearby noticed and glanced up briefly. Looking for something, she asked casually while tying vegetables together with thin rope. The young person hesitated for a second before answering. The woman selling loofah earlier. Does she come here every day? The woman shrugged lightly. Most mornings. Very early. Their heartbeat tightened instantly. Do you know where she lives? This time the woman looked at them more carefully, slightly suspicious, but not unfriendly. Somewhere beyond the Western Road, I think. Near the smaller houses, past the fields. She paused briefly before adding, "She doesn't talk much." The young person nodded slowly, trying to remain calm, even though their thoughts had suddenly become louder than ever. Western Road, smaller houses near the fields. It wasn't exact, but it was more than they had before. Much more. "Thank you," they said quietly. As they stepped away from the stall, the feeling inside them shifted again. The frustration of constantly arriving too late was still there, but now it mixed with something stronger. Direction. The search finally had shape. Hana wasn't hidden behind impossible distance anymore. She existed somewhere within the daily rhythm of this village, somewhere reachable. They moved slowly out of the crowded section of the market, their eyes still observing everything around them, but their attention had already shifted toward the western side of the village. The image formed in their mind almost automatically now. Narrow roads, quiet houses, fields stretching beyond the village edge, maybe a small unfinished home hidden somewhere among them. As they walked, the sounds of the market gradually faded behind them. The atmosphere became quieter again, softer, filled with the distant sound of birds and wind moving through trees. Sunlight spread across the roads more strongly now, warming the ground beneath their steps. But despite the peaceful surroundings, tension still remained inside them, because every new clue only deepened one question. Why had Hana disappeared from their life in the first place? The thought surfaced unexpectedly, slowing their steps for a moment. Until now, the search itself had consumed all their attention. But underneath that search was something deeper, something unresolved. They weren't just trying to find Hana. They were trying to understand what happened between the past and now. How someone could vanish so completely, then suddenly reappear like this, moving silently through the same village, as if fate kept placing them near each other without allowing them to truly meet. Their eyes lowered briefly toward the road ahead. Twice they had seen Hana. Twice they had lost her. And now, somehow, they were following the invisible traces she left behind. The thought should have felt hopeless, but strangely, it didn't anymore. Because even though Hana kept disappearing before they could reach her, every missed encounter seemed to reveal something new. Each failure pulled them closer instead of pushing them away. That realization gave them enough strength to keep moving forward. The western side of the village slowly came into view. The roads narrowed again, lined with older fences, small gardens, and quiet houses separated by open stretches of land. Some homes looked worn, but lived in, with tools resting outside and laundry moving gently in the breeze. Others seemed unfinished, carrying signs of ongoing repairs and construction.